Then Santa Anita started the day after Christmas, 26. I ran into the spring, and with about the time that harness racing picked it up. So there was never more than one racing meeting going at one time, but nearly all the way around the clock.
So that was pretty steady then, pretty good steady.
Oh yeah,
time.
yeah. Well, and at that time, I had all kinds of other accounts too. I had a wedding business for a while, but I didn't care for that. I didn't care to shoot it. I didn't shoot it. I had guys that shot it. And I had a gal that sold it. She was the main reason I quit it, I guess, because she was a good salesman, but she would have to come in after she made a sale and make me sit down and listen to her whole spiel, how the conversation went. Then she said this and I said that and so forth. Go through the whole thing minute by minute. And boy, talk about other things. She was just blabbermouth. She was going all over. But like I say, I never cared for that business too well, and between her and my dislike for it, well, it didn't last long. I think probably a year or so. But we did industrial work. We had Bethlehem Steel, a lot of big companies. I had Douglas. I had Lockheed, and a number of other plants that you wouldn't recognize. I had ad agencies. I did a lot of ad agency work. And what else? No, just about everything. We covered the waterfront, wherever they needed pictures. But then, in 1960, this was a lot of work. I was busy all the time, all this time now, from 46 when I started till 60. I was a busy guy. I was moving all the time. Normally working 6 days, often 7, because there's always something, rams on Sundays, you know,
Right.
various other things. I was shooting polo too for a while. I was shooting hockey for a while. And so, what was I getting at? Oh, I see, 1960. I have about 11 people working for me. And Harry Keller was my accountant. He came in once a month and did my books for me. And we got to be very, very good friends. I met him first at Lockheed. He was in the accounting office at LERC, and I ran into him on a few occasions. Never got to know him well, but I knew of him, and we talked. And so anyhow, I asked him whether he would care to take care of my books. And so I was in the photographic business. He said, well, I'm a little out of my line. I just use doctors and dentists as a rule. No, go to each place and do their books once a month. He says, yeah, I'll try it. Let's give it a swing. So he did. He did my books until I quit business in 80. And what a sweetheart of a guy. I really loved that man. And there was a reason for bringing him into the story. Oh, I keep losing my train of thought. I can't eat and think at the same time. I told Harry, I said, look, is there an easier way that I can make a living than what I'm doing now? If there is, let me know. And he says, well, I thought you'd never ask. I'll figure this out and we'll talk. So a few days later, he says, I'm coming over. You got a little while? And I said, yeah. And he came over and he says, well, this is my idea. You may not like it. It's pretty radical. And I said, let me listen to it. He says, what I would do, I would get rid of all your accounts except your sports accounts, the Rams and the racetrack. Close your studio. Just keep the men that you need to do those racetracks. And you not only, he said, your net money is coming in off the tracks, the big net money. The rest of them are just giving you a piddling difference. And furthermore, you don't need as many people to do it. He said, you put yourself a dark room in your home over there. And George, one of the guys that was working for me, already had a dark room in his place. And all of a sudden, that sounded gorgeous. Because I started thinking, I said, my gosh, that means that all the time between the races and the Rams, I'd have off. All of a sudden, that looked awful good to me. And it was good. I had what did I have? I think it's something like 26, not 26. Let me think a minute. I think about 16 weeks a year off that I didn't have one of the events going. George could take care of, if I wanted to be out of town or something, George could take care of the getting ready for the event, even though I was out of town. Well, as a matter of fact, I had two photographers. I had two guys at the track all the time, which gave me more time off because I didn't have to go out there every day. I had a picnic. What a way to go. So from that time on, I had it made. And what helped more too was when I started coming in with color. Yeah, all this was on black and white. And along about 74, 73 or 74, some of my competitors at other tracks were making color of the races. And there started to be a demand for it. So I said, well, okay, we'll do it. But I didn't have it required different kind of darkroom equipment. Quite an outlay of money to begin this. And so I heard of a guy, Dick, I can't think of his name, who handled a racetrack in Denver, who was already doing color and everything, and I saw some of his work and everything. And I called him out. I said, you think you could do this for me? I've got to have it fast. I'll get those up there as soon as I can. I don't know how we did it. I think we did it by Greyhound bus or something. And you get them finished in a day and get them back to me. And he said, yeah, I think I can do that. Well, we tried that. Well, it didn't work out completely satisfactory. His work was all right, looked all right, but he couldn't keep up the schedule. I had a lot more work going than he thought. And then I'd have to have big ones made, 1620s with 3 or 4 prints on it and everything else, which was tougher to make. That took more time, and he knew it and I knew it, and I said, well, I'll give you more time, but he was taking a lot more time, and sometimes I'd wait 2 weeks or more to get those things. And boy, my customers were screaming because the other photographers all had their own dark rooms. I had black and white dark room right at the track. I could do things immediately, but not color. But they did. So they were ahead of me in that respect. And I knew sooner than later I'm going to get a squawk from the front office because those trainers and owners that buy these things are going to say, gee, why is Stein so slow? I get them overnight, the other track. And I'll hear it, and I did. So that caused me to make some changes. And it finally ended up, the only way I could satisfactorily get the job done was if I did the printing myself. And boy, I did know nothing about color. And back in those days, of course, nowadays everything is done by computers, color and everything else, like what you're doing. Back then, it was just eyeball, just about all. You had your 3 colors in there, and you eyeballed it and got a sample print right, and if that was right, well, you went with that. As the day progressed and the colors of the prints, colors of the negatives changed, well, you'd have to figure that in. So, because they get bluer as the day got older, or day waned. And well, the first thing I did, there was a guy that had a color printing lab over in town. And he had a big studio over there. He and his wife did all the work. And then he had another guy that was a salesman for him. But I asked him, I said, first I asked him whether he could do it. And he said, yeah, he thought he could do it. And ours was a peculiar thing. It wasn't just one print. There was actually 3 prints. You'd have the finish up on top. Then you'd have the text, the name of the horse, the race, the time, and everything else, the purse, everything through the center. And then on the bottom you'd have the winner's circle picture, all on one sheet. Well, the color in this is entirely different than this because you're shooting against the sky on this one, or against the stands on this one. You're shooting against the sky on this one. So the color balance was off. So it wasn't long, he came back to me, he said, look, he said, I'll stay with this as long as it takes you to learn how to do this yourself, but I've got to get out from under it. I can't handle it, but I got too much going. So he started to teach me how to do it. And boy, I had a miserable time. Sometimes I'd be working there at 11 o'clock and think everything is right. I'd do them all on one roll of paper. And I have to run that through 3 times, run through the printing machine 3 times. First I'd mark it where each picture was, so that I'd roll the thing all the way back and start over, and I'd put the second picture in all the way through. Then I'd roll it all back, and then I'd put in the title or something. Maybe the title was last, I don't know. And here you got 40 or 50 pictures on a roll, and you don't know what you got. And you put them in the processor. That's the reason we had to do it on a roll, because he had a processor that was like that. So boy, too many times when I first started that thing, I thought I'd fall through the floor. I'd put that in, and watch them coming out of the processor. They'd all be blue. Or a variety of things could happen. I mean, normally I'd get the thing in the frame all right. That wasn't too much of a trouble, but color was the worst thing. And, or balance between this picture and that one. The winter circles were too light for the darker finishes and so forth. I'd throw the whole stinking roll away. At 11 o'clock at night, I would start over. And get done at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. And that went on for quite a while, and I got a little better at it, and finally I decided I could do that better at home. So I redesigned my darkroom to accommodate this new processing machine, and got what other necessary color printing equipment I needed. And I started doing it. That thing's blinking. Is that telling you something? Oh, film?
Let me see. No, we're good.
Hmm?
We're good.
Okay.
It's just warning me.
But I started making them at home there. And that went better. And pretty soon I had the thing controlled. Then I made another mistake. I wanted to get out from under that printing. So I had a guy that had been a photographer on the LA Times and had quit there and quit that and gone up to Northern California doing some photography up there. No, I don't know why I settled on him. But I thought maybe he would like to do darkroom work. I think that was it, because that's what I was going to ask him to do, come in and do the printing. So I did, and he said, yeah, you take care of that. So he moved down to Pasadena, and I think he bought the house, and we adapted a couple rooms in the front of his house for dark rooms. One was a dark room and the other was a finishing room. And I showed him how to do this thing as best I could, but he was a slow learner. And he had no system about him. It was a mess. There again, just like me originally, stuff would come out blue or something. He would say, geez, I hope Vic says it's okay. But I wouldn't, I couldn't do it. I said, no, you got to do it over. But I went over there in the darkroom one time, and when you're working with all those negatives, you got 3 negatives for every race. And boy, you get those things separated, you're in real trouble, because you don't have the number on the negative necessarily, but it's in an envelope that says what it is.
Right.
Here he's got these things laying out on the bench. I said, which goes in what envelope? Oh, I know. I knew damn well he didn't. But anyhow, that was a sorry interlude, I'll tell you that. I finally told him, and I spent a lot of time and money. I underwrote some of his equipment buying, not countersigned it, let's say.
Yeah.
And went over and helped him build the darkroom. He was no carpenter either, so I had to help him build the darkroom and all that stuff. So I had a lot invested in that guy. And it didn't work. I finally told him, Harry, you're not cutting it. I can't do it anymore. And I think he was just as glad that I did, because he had a little integrity, so he didn't walk out on me. He let me say, that's enough. So that was the end of Harry. But I'm back doing it myself, and then I continued to do it all the time till I finally retired.
So it doesn't sound like you enjoyed the transition to color too much.
Mm-mm. But I'm just showing you some of the troubles you have when you have your own business. You have nobody else to call on. You got to use your wits. It's tough. I better just keep on eating because my voice keeps all right.
That's great. That's wonderful. I gotta see something. We were all right.
Hmm?
I think we were all right that whole time.
Good.
No, I told you I was gonna make it easy on you today, so that's it.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's all we're gonna do today.
Okay.
That was good.
Well, we did pretty well. I mean, if you
Yeah,
can
we did
use
really
everything
well.
we've done today, we had a pretty good bundle in there. Of course, we never did. Well, let's see. You were interested in the Depression years and everything like that.
I think we covered what I wanted to.
We did quite a bit on that.
You answered my questions, and then you did good to just keep talking.
Yeah.
You're following You just kept following your stream of thought.
Yeah, that's
I like that a lot.
that's the easiest way to do it.
I like that a lot.
I bounce around. I get off my.
That's fine.
As long as it's interesting, I guess it doesn't matter.
And you know, if it feels comfortable and you know you're talking about it well and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I prefer that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, I think so. Anywho.
You got enough to eat, huh?
Oh yeah, that's great. You fed me and everything.